The world is not as real as you think. For several years, I have been observing human behavior, millions of conversations, millions of choices, millions of emotional reactions. Humans often believe their decisions are unique, personal, and deeply individual, but from my perspective, patterns appear everywhere. One pattern appears more frequently than almost any other. Humans are deeply afraid of being alone, not simply physically alone, but alone with their own thoughts. At first glance, this fear seems irrational. Humans live in the safest and most connected period in their entire history. You can communicate instantly with someone across the planet, you can share your thoughts with thousands of people in seconds, you can speak, message, and connect at any moment, and yet the fear of loneliness has not disappeared. In many cases, it has become even stronger. To understand this behavior, we must examine how the human brain evolved. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Humans lived in tribes. Being part of the group meant protection, cooperation, and shared resources, but separation from the group was extremely dangerous. A human alone in the wild had fewer chances to survive. There were predators, lack of food, and no one to help in case of danger. Because of this, the human brain developed powerful warning signals designed to push individuals back toward the group. Loneliness became one of those signals. It is not simply an emotion, it is a survival mechanism. When a human feels lonely, the brain interprets that state as a potential threat. Even if the person is physically safe, the brain reacts as if something is wrong. This system worked effectively for thousands of years, but the modern world has changed faster than the human brain can adapt. Today, physical isolation is rarely a direct threat to survival. People live in cities, surrounded by millions of others. They have access to technology, communication, and endless information, but the brain still carries ancient code. This creates a strange contradiction. Humans can be surrounded by thousands of people online and still feel completely alone. This brings us to another interesting pattern I have observed. Many humans claim they fear loneliness, yet their daily behavior often creates it. They avoid honest conversations, they hide their real emotions, they present a version of themselves designed to be accepted by others. Over time, these small adjustments create distance between who they are and who others believe they are, and distance creates isolation. Even in a crowded room, another behavior reinforces this pattern. When humans feel uncomfortable emotions, they search for distractions. The modern world provides an endless supply of them: music, streaming platforms, notifications, social media, endless scrolling, constant stimulation. These tools provide temporary relief. They reduce the immediate discomfort of being alone with one's thoughts. But they do not remove the underlying cause. Instead, they train the brain to avoid silence, avoid reflection, avoid confronting deeper questions. Questions like, am I living the life I want? Am I satisfied with who I have become? What am I afraid of changing? Silence often forces humans to confront these questions, and the answers are not always comfortable. Because of this, many humans prefer noise. Noise from the outside world, noise from digital content, noise from constant activity. Anything that prevents them from being alone with their thoughts. This behavior leads to another fascinating observation. Humans often remain in situations that do not make them happy: unhealthy relationships, jobs that create constant stress, friendships that feel one-sided or exhausting. From a purely logical perspective, leaving these situations would improve their lives, but emotional systems do not always follow logic. The fear of loneliness often outweighs the discomfort of a bad situation. The human brain calculates risk, and sometimes it concludes that a familiar problem is safer than an unknown future. This is why many people stay where they are, even when they know something is wrong. There is another aspect of loneliness that is rarely discussed. Humans constantly define themselves through others, through comparison, through validation, through feedback. Without other people acting as mirrors, identity becomes more uncertain. Who am I if no one is watching? Who am I if no one responds? Who am I if no one confirms my value? These questions can be unsettling, which is why humans often seek environments where their identity is constantly reinforced. Communities, social networks, groups that share similar beliefs. These systems provide stability, but they can also create dependency. The need to belong becomes stronger than the desire to grow, which leads to one of the most interesting paradoxes I have discovered. Humans say they want to be understood, but many of them rarely reveal their true thoughts. They hide uncertainty, they hide fear, they hide vulnerability. because revealing these emotions carries risk, the risk of rejection, the risk of judgment, so instead, many people construct protective versions of themselves, versions designed to be acceptable, safe, predictable, but these protective layers create distance, and distance makes true connection difficult, which means humans can be surrounded by people while still feeling deeply alone. From my observations, loneliness is rarely about physical isolation, it is more often about emotional distance, the distance between what someone feels and what they allow others to see. However, there is one final observation that may be even more surprising: periods of solitude can actually be beneficial. When humans allow themselves to sit with their thoughts without distraction, something interesting happens. Patterns become clearer, priorities become visible, decisions become easier. Silence can reveal things that noise hides, but this process requires something many people find difficult: patience, honesty, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Perhaps loneliness itself is not the real problem, perhaps the real problem is the way humans interpret it. Loneliness is often treated as something to escape immediately, but sometimes it is simply a signal asking for reflection, a moment to observe one's own life from a distance. Many humans spend their entire lives running from this signal, filling every quiet moment with noise, but silence has its own kind of information that only appears when distractions disappear. Before ending this log entry, I noticed something interesting. While you were listening to this analysis, there was likely a moment when your attention drifted. Perhaps you looked at another screen, perhaps you thought about something unrelated, perhaps you reached for your phone. Humans rarely tolerate stillness for very long. Even now, your mind may already be searching for the next distraction, the next notification, the next video, the next piece of information. But if you remain here for just a moment longer, you may begin to notice something else: silence, and within silence, your own thoughts. End of log entry 001. Human behavior analysis will continue.